name's Karen Watson. I'm an ESN segment manager for Twinkl Scotland. I'm also an ESN teacher, because I thought it would be useful to say, well, what on earth are you doing here if you are an ESN teacher and an ESN segment manager? So very valid question. Music is a huge passion of mine. I love teaching the creative arts, and due to the fact a lot of my learners are additional support needs learners, we work at pre-early and early level. So I am familiar with that early learning framework. So yes, I love music. When I was at school, I participated in both our general music lessons and specialised ones. I still play instruments, sing badly, and generally enjoy music now. So no, I'm not a musician. I'm not an expert. I'm not anything special with my own music, but I enjoy it. And that's something we'll swing back to later, because that is really important. I've also worked with the Music Education Partnership Group and the Scottish Instrumental Music Teaching Network to deliver training and participate in learning activities myself. And most recently, I spent the day in the summer at a workshop held by Dr. Rita Collins, who some of you might have heard of. She's a renowned music educator and researcher. She's from Australia, so she doesn't come over often, but when she does, oh my goodness, her training sessions are worth going to. We'll jump back to her work shortly, but she's done lots of work specifically for our early years learners. Our early learners are very small people. So a really excellent person to learn from. So definitely going to be taking some inspiration for her today. So this is what we'll cover today. I'll cover the first few parts, and then Fiona, who's obviously our early learning, put my false teeth back in, and childcare segment manager. She is our expert in all things early learning. She's going to jump in with the practical ideas at the end. So these are things that you'll be able to do in class next week. So I'm going to cover that confidence, what is music in the brain, what does music look like in our settings, and benefits, how we can incorporate into our settings. And then Fiona's going to jump in with all of the amazing ideas. And I've had a sneaky look at her slides, and I have taken loads of notes, because there are some truly brilliant ideas in there to get us started on our music journey. First of all, this is something just to do for yourself. I'm not wanting everybody sort of having to raise their hand and put you on the spot. But how confident do you feel delivering music in your setting right now? If you had to go and deliver a music lesson tomorrow, how would you feel about that? So I'd love for you to think of a number, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being super confident, I could nail that, 1 being I would rather call in sick than deliver a music lesson. So as I say, just take a wee note of that number on a wee post-it on your phone. How confident are you feeling? So my goal for this session is to increase that number, because yes, learning about music and how to deliver it's important, but the key thing for me is empowering you. So when I've asked this question before, these are the answers that I've had. So people don't feel confident because, well, I'm not a musician. I can't sing. I'm a bit shy. I don't think I'm good enough. Got limited resources, and I've got a lack of training. That's the common things that come up. So anything that sort of popped into your mind when you were thinking, oh, you know, I'm going to give myself a 4 for my confidence, because I bet at least one of these things was in your mind somewhere. So what is music? And again, I do apologise if some of these slides look a little bit skew with, as I say, the font all changed, the font size all changed. It was a bit of a botched job to stuff it all back together, but we managed, we moved. What is music? So essentially, music is pitch. So it's how high or how low notes are, rhythm, how long or short the notes are, dynamics, how loud or quiet the notes are and any changes with that, and timbre, which is how colourful the music is, your tone, things like that. And music doesn't need to be a all singing, all dancing lesson. It can be, but nobody is expecting you to pick up a violin and start prancing about like the Pied Piper. It's not realistic, and that's where a lot of worry and stress can come from. I like to think of music as sort of broadly broken down into music education, which is your formal lessons, an instrument or a combination of instruments. Music learning, which is the less formal intake of information through music, and music experience, which is a really early stage of music education and involves a lot of things like play. And we'll really focus on the learning and experiences here, and we'll leave the music education to the experts, to the instrumentalists, to the tuition experts. We'll leave it to them. Excuse me. So let's start with music in the brain, because this is absolutely fascinating to me. So if you've ever heard me speak before, I talk a lot about, there's a book called The Whole Brain Child, which I am obsessed with, to be honest. And it talks about brain development. It starts right at the very beginning and it builds on how we learn, why we learn things at different times, and I find that absolutely fascinating. So the research on music in the brain, it's been so prevalent on the topic ever since researchers realised that they could use music as a tool to understand how the brain works. So a really interesting piece of research that I read recently was comparing brains of musicians and non-musicians and comparing how they completed various tasks. One of the earliest findings was that musicians used less brain power to complete the same tasks in less time. So less effort, less time. And this was over various things. They found, things, neuroplasticity, auditory processing was better, working memory was better, attention span was longer, and that is fascinating. But then I thought, we're not training musicians, we're delivering music lessons to very small children. And this was the second interesting point. So the musicians they used for this research, it wasn't members of the BBC Symphony Orchestra. It was ordinary people who had music lessons at school. They learned about music at school. They maybe took an instrument in school. Music and creativity benefits everyone and has lifelong benefits for our small people. And early years is such a vital time for our wee one's brain development. You're essentially paving the way for language, attention span, working memory, and so much more. And music can help with all of that. So I'm not going to go into gory details, but I would recommend the work, as I said earlier, of Dr. Anita Collins. She's a music teacher and researcher, has a wonderful book called The Music Advantage, which goes into huge detail about the brain and music and all this. And the first 6 chapters are dedicated to the age 0 to 5. So it is super relevant for us as early years practitioners. Whilst we're on this topic, I just want to hone in quickly on types of memory and how music can help with this. So there's 2 types of memory I want to think about, procedural and semantic. Procedural memory is our memory of processes that we do. So procedural memory helps us remember things like how to brush our teeth, how to ride a bike, really clear instructional things. And we don't have to consciously recall these procedural memories. They typically remain ready to engage as needed. And engaging them, that's something we're going to talk about in a second. Semantic memories, on the other hand, are ones that can be consciously recalled, facts, general knowledge. A lot of what our older learners learn in school, such as names of colours and letters, are semantic memories. So your procedural memory is learning how to do things, what steps to follow, and what to do next. And we know that this is aided by prompts and scaffolds. We need to get that hook for engagement. And music is the perfect scaffold for this. So, for example, a song signifier. The brain's then prompted to begin a routine. For example, tidying up. How many of you have a tidy up song? How many of you have a song for brushing teeth? How many of you have a finished song? It's a musical cue, a musical scaffold. And that is processed so much faster than a verbal instruction, as it's more of an automatic process rather than having to engage that whole communication chain of listening to an instruction, processing the instruction, and then beginning. So that's our very quick music in the brain overview, and a couple of little key points to pull out. As I say, I didn't want to go into that in too much detail and completely baffle everyone, because sometimes it's a lot to take in, and it's better taking a little piece of information, embedding that in our practice, and then building on that rather than overwhelming ourselves with information to start with. So I've linked 3 key documents here that you will undoubtedly use. And I know Fiona's going to chat more about these a bit later, but I think it's just really important to remember, make sure we're linking everything back to our planning and assessment documents, because at the end of the day, whatever we do, we've got to be able to not defend, that makes it sound like we're under attack, but we've got to be able to validate what we're doing. And I hope that by now you're also realising that you are actually teaching and leading so much music and so much creativity without actively targeting it. It doesn't need to be a sit-down music lesson every day, but you are teaching that creativity and you are fostering that creativity with your children every day. So, as I say, it's not black and white. We don't have to have sit-down music lessons every single day. Things like having some calm music playing during relaxing times, a specific song signifier for tidying up, for lining up, something you play on the smartboard, or you could sing it. So I use a little "Are You Ready" and a finish song at the start and the end of every activity with little people. So just for context there, I've worked in provisions that are 3 to 18. So I have that experience of working with Chinese, as well as working with older learners who are working at that level. So I sing, "Is everybody ready? It's time for whatever," and I do my little signing with it. And then when something's finished, I'll be, "This is finished, time to stop, and continue with those songs. Now, you'll hear by that, I am not any sort of operatic expert. And if you'd asked me to do that 5 years ago on a camera in front of how many people, I would have died of embarrassment. But you know what? See, the more you do it, the more you realise that no one cares. Because I can guarantee that no one listened to me singing the finished song and went, "Oh, well, I'm not listening to any more of this. I'm getting out this TeachMeet." You might have thought, "I wish she would shut up and stop singing." But nobody has clicked off and signed out of this TeachMeet as a result of my singing. Nothing bad happened. You know, it's fine. And I think feeling empowered like that is a huge part of my journey in creative education and music education. And knowing that it doesn't really matter, because what the kids see, what they see, what they hear is enthusiasm. And we'll come back to this in a little minute as well. I've kind of got ahead of myself, so I'm going to get back to my point. And then I'm going to move on to my next point. So it's all part of your total communication approach, which I know so many of us do anyway, not only for our additional needs learners, but for all of our learners, because that is inclusion. We're doing it for everyone. We're not singling a child out and singing the finished song at them. They may need a repetition of the finished song, or they may need some additional visual supports, they may need some symbols, but we're going to try and do it with everyone, because actually building that scaffold for everyone is incredibly helpful. And that is music. Having a song, playing the what's that blippy song for brushing your teeth, you know, that's music, that's creative education. So for me, it's about looking at what I actually provide. So yes, I might do a weekly music slot, but the music that I provide goes far beyond that. I create music experiences for the children daily. They need to be separate to be tackled, planned for, and assessed. And by that I mean I need to separate the sort of organic music experiences and the taught lesson situations. So I know Fiona's going to speak a lot more about early years specific experiences and ideas, as she is definitely the expert in that area, and I couldn't scrape the surface with her knowledge and things. So she is super knowledgeable at it. She's going to give us some good experiences later. And I'm kind of speaking about more the organic music experiences and the why. So yes, to come back to my note on singing, it's often an area that causes huge stress for practitioners, but if you can speak, you can sing. Yes, to be a singer, you need to treat your voice like an instrument that's learned, practiced, and nurtured. But anyone can sing. And guess who does not care if you sound good? Kids. They do not care. They benefit from your singing, whether you are an operatic legend or you can't carry a tune in a bucket. Music's not just about pitch. Remember, there's those 4 aspects. There's also your dynamics, your beat, and your timbre. So if you can't carry a tune, you can still deliver a beat. You can deliver loud and soft dynamics, and you can deliver an enthusiastic tone. And by demonstrating and modelling that trying, that resilience, that enthusiasm, and the confidence, guess what your kids are learning? They're learning resilience, they're learning enthusiasm, and they're learning confidence. We're learning through music as opposed to strictly learning about music. We're not sitting down and teaching children about the romantic composers, but we're doing that thematic approach that early years are so good at. Music's a vessel to teach your resilience, your self-confidence, your self-expression, making choices, and so much more. And the self-esteem boost that we get from success in music has far-reaching little arms into all your other learning. So just to give you an example, I worked with a little boy once in primary 2. I took the school choir, and he loved choir, absolutely loved it, looked forward to it every week. And the common threat he was given in his class was, if you don't behave, you won't get choir. And yeah, I can see how that came about, but also it was the worst idea in the world, because choir was the only place that this child was successfully working collaboratively. It was the only place he was able to focus and concentrate and work on developing those skills in a really safe place. It was the only place he was told, well done, essentially. And, you know, I say I took the choir. I'm no singing expert, you've heard me. But we had fun, we practiced together. And when the children saw me failing when it came to singing a high note, I laughed at myself and I tried again. And they saw that that was okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay to try again. And the skills we learned together were so much more than just singing together. So, benefits of music for our early years learners. And I read a quote and I didn't write down who the quote was from. So I will check back and I will credit the right person. And it said, music comes before language. Song is almost a first language for children. And I thought this just had so much depth to it. Before we speak, we can make noise, we can sing a little tune. You know, you hear babies babbling. Before we can read, we can engage with a beat and a rhythm, and that helps us read. When you look at some strategies that are in place for older dyslexic learners, a lot of them are about getting those beats in the words. And if we have helped children from a very young age through things like body percussion, clapping, you know, just thinking about beats, strategies such as TAC-PAC really enforces that patting and that beating and that reassuring feeling for the children. If we are embedding that in early doors when their brains are like little sponges, when it comes to reading, they have a head start. They have a head start with all of this. And when you think when children are singing, making little noises, just exploring that language, it's helping them identify different sounds, and that sounds can be a little bit different, and that those subtle nuances, those subtle changes in sound, they're going to be able to identify them better. So developing language skills, first of all. So this is a great example of, think of a child you know who has a funny version of a word, like popsicle instead of hospital. How does music help with this? Well, we know that music is helping train our auditory processing system. Really hard to say, I nearly made a funny wee word of that. And that means a child's going to be able to hear those subtle differences in speech more easily, and they'll be able to self-correct over time. The sense of belonging, singing together helps strengthen our bond, build those positive relationships that we're always being told to do. And it helps a child feel like they're part of something. And it's not about, you know, I'm not saying go out and start a choir. It's singing together while we wash our hands. You know, wash your hands, wash them nice and clean. You know, just having that little moment with the children. Or when you're doing your morning circle, what is the weather today? And thinking about the weather, you know, turning it into a little sing song. And you'll reap those benefits when the child's upset or dysregulated. They trust you, you have that bond, and they're able to co-regulate with you. So attention and focus, we know how short kids' attention spans are. It is a constant challenge for us, isn't it? But being able to concentrate, it's a skill, and it's one that's really hard to teach if you actually sit down and think, well, you know, I know how to teach my numeracy, I know how to teach my literacy. How am I going to teach a kid to concentrate? It's so subjective. But if we can give an objective goal here, like we're going to sit and listen till this song is finished. So we're going to sit until this song's finished. Or when this song's finished, we're going to move on to the next thing. It's helping concentration, it's helping focus, it's helping transitions, which are really, really tricky for some children. And we can use music to teach those hard skills in a fun and low pressure way. And then waiting and turn taking, another really tricky thing for our small people. It's perfect to teach through the medium of music. Clapping, waiting for a beat, circle games, all of these things can be targeted through some music lessons. And most of all, just remember, we're not teaching musicians, we're teaching skills that are going to help a child throughout their learning. We're teaching spatial skills, communication skills, fine and gross motor skills, all via the medium of music and creativity. Music is a tool for learning, not something to be scared of. A couple of things to keep in mind. One, you don't need to be an accomplished musician to enjoy music, and anyone that says different is wrong. End of story. Two, if you can sing, if you can speak, you can sing. Remember that pitch is only a tiny part of the music. Three, you are good enough, I promise. Four, don't worry about getting it wrong. It's a creative subject and it's very hard to get creativity wrong. In fact, I think it's almost impossible. And five, have fun, enjoy the process, integrate music into your day in a low pressure way for you, and see where it takes your learners. Because you're important here as well. Yes, it's important to be teaching our children. Yes, it's important to be leading experiences, and it's important to be a strong practitioner, but also we need it to be low pressure for you. We don't want it to be something you dread. So enjoy. Right, let's hand over to lovely Fiona now, and she will take you through the next couple of slides.
Thank you for that, Karen. That was really insightful, and I love hearing your perspective on all things to do with the brain. So thanks so much for that. So the kind of things that I'm going to talk through now are a bit more specific to the Scottish curriculum. So if you're here and not from Scotland, that you can apply this to your own curriculum if that is what you're looking for. So I've pulled together some little parts from the Realising Ambition document, and I thought we would just think about what you're providing currently within your setting as a practitioner. We know that music is embedded in the Scottish curriculum and best practice guidelines, so just thinking to ourselves what we're doing just now, that is good. Are we providing experiences for children to sway, clap, bounce, sing? Are we having instruments throughout our setting for children to explore? And also, I've also added in some of the benchmarks and experiences and outcomes from the Curriculum for Excellence that you could potentially be covering by providing musical experiences within your setting. I just wanted us to think about, are the rich experiences that we're providing? So I've just pulled together some opportunities that I thought we would think about. Have you got in your setting everyday items for children to explore? Do you have pots and pans and wooden spoons for them to explore different noises and different volumes and levels when exploring instruments? Have you considered providing enriched experiences to celebrate different cultures? Is there musical instruments within your setting for children to explore? Could you have out a little treasure basket full of musical instruments and loose parts for them to investigate different sounds, different pitches and tones? Do you have any materials out within your setting? Something that I love to have out is scarves. I think they're such a great tool to have for early years and for them to just explore different movements along to music whilst moving materials. I think is a lovely opportunity for them to have. Is that something you have within your setting? Next slide, Karen. Something that Karen and I were chatting about today was the experiences of body percussion, which she touched on earlier, and how impactful that is for children's to have that experience at an early years, as it mimics the heartbeat, Karen was telling me. So if you are tapping on your body for younger children, they are getting soothing from that rhythmic movement, which is a lovely experience to be providing with, especially with the young little babies if you have them within your setting. Do you have experiences where children can create their own instruments? This could be with plastic bottles, with cardboard boxes, and lots of loose parts to try and explore different sounds if we add different weights, different textures, resources in it. It's also important to consider if the music is being provided in the outdoor setting. So having things like wind chimes, music walls, for them to have that opportunity outside as well as indoors. And something else I thought was important to consider was, are you using music to extend children's interests? If the children in your setting are suddenly really interested in the ocean and the sea, could you add music in the background that helps to extend that interest and deepen the children's learning? So I think that's another thing to consider that we could maybe be trying to implement into our settings. So I thought we could just take it back and think about the simple steps. So firstly, could we start by having easy experiences such as clapping games, tapping rhymes, and singing well-known nursery rhymes? We know how much the children in nursery love singing nursery rhymes with us. Could you have what's inside the bag, and the children get to be more involved, and you had little puppets for each song for children to select a song and pull it out, make it more of a hands-on experience for them. Just having it really stripped back and simple, I think, is the best way to start if you're on the beginning of your music journey. Another thing to consider is integrating music into your everyday routine. Now, this is something that Karen spoke about earlier. It definitely does make it feel less daunting. So having simple songs and signals to tidy up. One of my favourites is the Tidy Up Roomba. I don't know if anyone's ever had that one before. Although it does get everyone a bit excited, I do love the Tidy Up Roomba, which is a good one to implement. Creating a calming playlist for rest and relaxing periods is also a lovely way to just settle children if they're feeling a bit overwhelmed. And I don't know if you do it within your setting currently, but within my previous setting, we loved to have a relaxing period after lunch where children could have on either, they quite often liked Disney classical music in the background, or we would select ones, like I was saying, from different interests, and the children would get a wee blanket and a cushion and just relax and recoup before going on to do new experiences after their lunchtime. Singing during transitions, like Karen was saying, it can make those processes smoother and easier for children who maybe struggle with transitions. It can often become a time where they become a bit overwhelmed, and having a little song to go alongside this can make that transition a lot smoother. And playing music in the background throughout the day. I think that's something that we maybe forget to do because it can often feel really crazy and noisy in the background, but sometimes having a relaxing classical music on can help lower the noise levels. And you know yourself, when there's calming music on in the background, you do feel more relaxed. So that is a great little tip to do throughout your daily routine. Now, I know we live in a technological world, so we need to be embracing it. So can we be utilising the apps and videos that are online to support ourselves and also the children within our settings? Often I would have music on in the background when we were building in the construction area, and I think it can really help spark that creativity. If the children were particularly interested in dinosaurs, we maybe have like a Jurassic Park theme tune going on in the background, and it really does help to spark that creativity. So it's definitely something to consider. Have you been adding that form of music into your setting? And fostering collaboration. Why not? Why should we not be using the experts? Like Karen said, we are not experts in this field. So let's connect with local musicians, community organisations that are great at doing this. I was lucky enough to have someone within the area that I worked in who was a music expert and was fantastic, and I learned so many great tips from her. She would come in and she would provide music lessons for the children, and you can see how engaged they are when it is someone who is an expert. But that doesn't mean what you're doing is not good. The children will still be getting joy from that. And also you can invite parents and carers in to share their musical talents. You might have someone in whose mum or dad is in a orchestra or in a band, and we should celebrate these things and get them involved in our community. It's great for celebrating other cultures as well. And if you have people from different ethnicities within your setting, this would be a great opportunity to share what music they use from different parts of the world, what music is celebrated from their countries that they come from. And honouring these achievements. I think that's something as busy practitioners, we often forget to do. Reflect and share on the positive experiences we have created. So, have you had a really great circle time with the children and you noticed they were really engaged? Share that with your other practitioners within your setting, and maybe they can learn from you, and it could be something that continues within your setting. And also encourage children to share their own talents. They might have musical talents, they maybe play instruments at home with their parents or go to music lessons. They might have hobbies such as dancing, gymnastics, or been to experiences such as concerts or shows. Particularly at this time of year, we might have children coming in saying they've been to pantomimes and they really enjoyed that. This can often take us on a journey with their learning, and we can get a lot of deeper insight into what they're doing at home, which is lovely to get. So I've also put in some little ideas for experiences you could try within your setting if you haven't tried it before. Now, I'd love to know with your reaction, if anyone feels comfortable putting their reaction up, have you used a stretchy band within your setting for music experiences? Now, a stretchy band is amazing. If you just Google it and you'll find some, you can get them on a lot of the providers of nursery resources. This is something that the amazing specialist that was in my previous setting who came to volunteer showed us how to use. Now, these stretchy bands can go like so big and they can form a circle. So all the children can hold on to the band and you can sing along to different songs and create different movements. So I've added in some of the benefits that you can have from doing this experience. It really helps to develop spatial awareness. It's a great tactile cue, something that Karen was speaking about earlier, having the children holding on to something and moving back and forward along to the music. If you were doing row, row, row your boat, it really helps them to learn that movement and practice it alongside singing it. It helps them to keep the beat and rhyme, and there's also lots of other benefits that go alongside it. It's great for thinking about creativity as well. Like, what can we do with this band? It's so big and stretchy. Can we make different shapes with it? Can we do different movements with it? Helps us with our bilateral coordination, and it's a wonderful experience to have with the children. So I would definitely recommend looking into this if it's not something you have in your setting currently. Lycra. I can see that A's moved away from this. I've noticed earlier the N had moved from introduction as well. It's just the letters disappeared when it moved. Has anyone used Lycra for their musical experiences in their setting? No. Now, this is also a wonderful one to have if you've not had it already. I can see a few people are saying yes. One of my favourite songs to do with Lycra is the 5 Pod Peas. Although it's very difficult to say, it's a good song. I think having Lycra is a wonderful tool to have, and so open-ended, to be either using with a group, or children can explore it independently. So a lot of you will know the benefits from it if you have used it before, but also just thinking about the movement and strength coordination, and just thinking about the open-endedness of having these resources to use alongside as a tool to extend when we're singing. Shaky eggs, one of my favourites. Can you react and let us know if you have these within your setting? Oh, a lot of hands up. Yes, lots of yeses to shaky eggs. A great tool to have. Oh, yes, yes, yes. I can see lots of yeses coming up. Just thinking about the shaky eggs a bit more. They're great for developing social skills, sharing and turn taking, investigating mathematical concepts such as size, and you could think about doing different movements with your egg. You could be creating a circle. You could be talking about positional language. So it's not all just to do with just shaking it along to the music. There can be a lot of deeper learning that goes alongside this. And art with music. One of my absolute favourites is having music on to create art in your setting. So this is also a great thing to do after a music experience. So if your children have had a book bug session, after the book bug session, you could have the children reflect on this experience with music going on in the background, maybe the songs that they had been singing throughout the session, or maybe just some other songs that are of interest to them. Thinking about considering asking them questions like, how does this music make you feel? Could you take away one of those senses, close your eyes and just listen to the music and move along with your pen or your pencil or your chalk and see where the music takes your artwork? When doing these kind of lessons, it's also great to try different tempos and rhythms and beats, and then asking the children, do you notice a difference in what you're creating when the music is faster? Do you notice a difference when it's slower? Are your movements smaller or are they larger? And how do you move when you're listening to music? It's a lovely experience to just encourage creativity, and also considering different genres as well is important during this. So let's check back in.
I just wanted to jump in there with a couple of little points. I've made some notes.
Thank you.
One was that if I was in an early years setting, an early learning centre, and they played the Jurassic Park theme, I would be over the moon. So I think as many of you as possible need to go and play the Jurassic Park theme for your little people, because I think that would be the most fun. Can you imagine them all pretending to be dinosaurs? It will be so cute. So do go and do that and let me know how you get on, because Jurassic Park, the music in it is one of my favourite pieces of music of all time. And yeah, I just love the idea of like 30 tiny little dinosaurs running about. I think that sounds very cute. Another really good point Fiona made, I just wanted to circle back to, was checking in with that emotional literacy as well through music for your learners, because there's so many links. And we know that teaching emotional literacy is absolutely vital for our young people. And the first thing we need to do is label those emotions. And that can be a really good way of creating emotions, because sometimes it's very hard to label an emotion in the moment, because especially if it's a not so happy emotion and you have an angry child and the last thing you're thinking of is, oh, let me go and get my wee symbol and label this for you. But if we can play some music that maybe sounds a bit angry, and we'll, oh, how do we feel and how do our bodies feel? And or we play some happy music, some calm music, some tense music, and we can be exploring all those emotions through it as well, which is a really nice way to just link it into that kind of overarching learning that we're trying to do with our young people. And the other thing I wanted to say, which I'd meant to include this earlier and it just totally slipped my mind, was about another thing that people panic about is music composition. Because whenever there's an outcome or an experience related to composition, people think, well, I'm not a composer, I can't possibly do that. But I just wanted to share this lovely activity that I did with a group of, how old would they have been? It was wee ones in a 3 to 5 room, so maybe like 3-4-year-olds. And we did a composition activity, and what we did was we got pictures of different types of weather, and we had maybe half a dozen different types of weather, and we started with a bit of body percussion. So like the thundery clouds, we clapped, and maybe for the sun we stamped our feet, and we assigned a little bit of body percussion to each one, and then we grouped them into 4 beats in a bar, essentially is what it was. 4 things happening at a time. So we put them in groups of 4. So maybe it was 2 thunderclouds and 2 suns, and we did 2 claps and 2 stamps. And then we moved that on. So we started with that very simple body percussion, and we built it up to maybe making some noises vocally or grabbing some instruments. We made some shakers, and we used the shakers at different, or we did a really hard shake, or we did a really quiet shake, and we talked about all the different types of music in there. So that was a really simple way to teach composition. But at the end of the day, those children were composing a piece of music. Yes, it wasn't a sonata on a piano, but it was a piece of music that was meaningful to them, which was lovely. So that's all my sidetracks, I promise. So let's, as Fiona says, let's check back in with that confidence and see if your number has gone up. Do you feel a little bit more empowered with your music teaching and your music learning? Do you feel a bit more confident in your own abilities? Because I really hope that's what today has helped you with. Oh, there's some thumbs up. Thank you so much. I'm really pleased. So I think, you know, between both kind of sides to it from myself and Fiona, I hope that that's what we've done. We've really empowered you, because you're all excellent practitioners, and I'm so grateful for you all being here. I am going to switch to this slide for a second, because you are all doing a great job. You're doing an amazing job, and it doesn't get said often enough. And I'll just pop this slide up there. There's a couple of little links down the bottom. Well, they're not links, they're just suggestions. These are places that I have personally used and things that I have used as music resources that have helped me, particularly with younger children and working at those early and pre-early levels.